Hello again and welcome to another episode of Rosham Joe Paints. Today we're going to mix things up a little bit. So we're finally going to plan ahead and get all the steps in order, understand what we're going to say, and then shoot with intention versus just rambling the entire time. No, that'll never happen.
You decided that you would rather do an ASMR type video.
What? So, makeup tutorial? No, I was just talking about probably wasn't going to wear a hat the entire time. Also though, I've already completed the model ahead of time, so I know what it looks like and I know what to expect. This model is the Canoptek Reanimator from the Necron lineup, and it was actually not my first choice. I was going to pick something simpler to start with, and then my oldest daughter, I gave her the choice of what I should paint next, and that's the one she picked, so that's the one we're going with. The pictures should be up at some point if they weren't already. All in all, it's a little bit shorter than some other videos. While it is a big model, it's a simple model, actually more so than some of the other things. It was for the size, it was simpler than I thought. I did add a couple things to the base, which was fun. That was my first pretend kit bashing, but we'll go into that a little bit later. All right, if all that looks good, let's get started. So here's the model, all disassembled and waiting to be put back together. Now, if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that I love to paint in sub-assemblies, and this is something that seems like it's going to lend itself to that pretty well because there's a lot of detail that is hidden underneath other detail, and I want to make sure that I hit it all. So this first assembly here, this is normally 2 pieces. I'm actually pretty impressed because overall, let me count, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, technically, 5, 6, 7 pieces. So this entire giant piece is actually only 7 pieces, which is pretty impressive. So I did end up gluing these 2 pieces together, and while I'm getting a little anxiety over getting in to all the centers of the arms and the hoses here, I think it'll be just fine. Also, you'll probably notice that the camera angle is a bit higher, and that is because I'm going to assemble this right now, but once I put it all together, it's pretty tall. So maybe that'll also solve some of the focusing issues. So a couple slots back here, put that together and press fit everything. I drilled, since I'm going to be taking this back apart, I did drill these holes out just barely. I didn't want to make it so that they were loose or anything like that, but it did give them a little bit of space. Now, one addition, if you've got the parts, and if you have Indomitus, well, then guess what? You have the parts. So if you are similar to me and that you do not like, I'm not a big fan of putting the enemy on the what do you call it, the base, like putting like, oh, here's a space marine right here, because then it's just, for whatever reason, it's like if you were in a Tyranid fight, why would you have a space marine there? It's kind of like, so with my Illuminor Cesaris, the Illuminor model, he's got like a guard guy there, and it's like, well, that wouldn't make sense if I was fighting space marines because I don't even know what that is. Anyways, that's not the point. But you'll see that there is part of the base here is this hand that looks like it's on some sort of off of some sort of dreadnought. So what I did is I took a spare head from one of the Necron Model Warriors I painted, and I took this arm. This arm is actually off of another piece. So on the captain, I believe it is, for the Primaris in the Indomitus box, you get this little Necron guy. And this Necron just sits, oh my god, it just does not like to focus on warriors. Anyways, so anyway, this guy here, up to, hang on, let me get a focus. So the body, as well as up to about here, is part of the that knight, and you're supposed to put it on the base. Well, he also has this hand here. So what I did is I cut the hand off first, and cut the head off, and then when I put this, this I'm guessing, like I said, some sort of a dreadnought together. Well, now it looks like, or at least to me, it looks like the Necron is, you know, kind of like buried in the ground, and he's grabbing his arm, he's being his head is being crushed by this limb that's disassembled and blah, blah, blah. So just a little bit of added scenery there. And then obviously you've noticed now that I cut the arm off, well, I cut off the other half of the arm, and this is just the Gauss Reaper that I didn't end up using, but I had painted already. So I'm like, you know what, let me throw this here. And now I can throw a Necron on this base for this Canoptek Reanimator. And it's as if he came across this guy and he's going to be bringing him back to life. Just a little bit of added, something I'd never done before. Is it kit bashing if technically it comes in the same kit? I don't know. Anyways, so let me go and put the other piece on. A total of 3 pegs here, which is nice, that put it together. And then again, or three pegs that mount it to the base itself. And that is done like that. There's a couple points in here you may want to watch out for, and that is this right here. The end of this hose needs to make sure it plugs in to the body. This is one of the main attachment points, and obviously you have the 2 back here. But so there's one of those hoses on either side. Oh, sorry, there was one extra piece, and that was the head, but the head fits on so easily that I forgot that I had glued that on there as well. So what is that? 8 total pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. And then these 2 pieces are going to go up here on the tops. So obviously those are very, very much going to be painted separately because it's just 2 little attachment points and that's it. So there you have it. There is the entire model built and ready to go. So the first thing we're going to do is hit it with some Chaos Black, and then I'm probably going to leave it disassembled and paint from the inside out. So I'm going to be painting that tiny piece right now, which is in the very center. And like I said, it's covered up. If I fully assembled this, there's no way I'd be getting to everything in the center. I would have to leave a lot to my imagination, and it just wouldn't happen. So let me finish that Chaos Black, and then we will start with our metals. So the Chaos Black is on here, nice coat. The first step, as with all, or most, I should say, of my Necrons, is going to be to give a dry brushing with lead belcher. Don't knock the bottle over. First step is to pick the bottle back up so that you don't spill it. Luckily it was empty. Mostly empty. I use it a lot. All right, so got an old brush, knocked most of it off. I'm going to do kind of the dry brush / overbrush again because I do want to get a decent amount on here, and then I'll hit it with the agar exhaust shade. Now I had spent a little while looking at this, and I think what I'm going to end up doing is the neck, the insides, and I mean be as messy as I feel right now, but the inside portions here, and then I'm going to do his arms down to about there, and again getting the coupler, what I'm going to consider the couplers where all the hoses are going in, like that and like that, something like that. Got these guys under here in there, and then getting the inside of this, and I want to get a decent coverage on that actually, so let me get a little bit more on the brush because I want to make sure that this is covered nice. I don't want any black spots. I want it to be nice and silvery so that when I hit it with the agar exhaust shade and then do another dry brush later, it comes out nice. So what I want is the inside to be silver, and then this, in most of the pictures that I've seen so far, I've kind of been browsing around, this outer casing is the same color as the inner, as you know, and then this, at least in the Games Workshop version, is black, with these being like a gold. That's their new what do you call it, the new Dynasty they just rolled out. So but you know what, we're just kind of I'm winging it right now in that whoa, it's too much paint. I'm just trying it out as far as making my own little Sautekh here. So these are all going to be silver because they look like spines to me. The pieces which are around the front orb are going to be silver. So maybe I'll leave like that, maybe that top one. Probably go back in here with some Calibrand green, you'll see. All right. Might have to come back in and get the very insides of that. No, that cover's okay. A little bit of lead belcher. So this little panel back here, why not make it silver? You know what? because I can always change that later. And as I was painting it, I decided I'm probably going to paint it later. I'll probably paint that Caliban as well. So that'll probably get some Caliban. The whole body and this piece here will be Caliban green. That'll be Caliban green. And then the arms will probably be Caliban green. So let me switch over to show you what I did on the legs, and then I'll finish dry brushing this. I already did these guys. Same kind of idea from the leg all the way up, and then I'm going to make the body portion Caliban green, and then that'll be surrounding a little bit of silver. And so I think that'll look pretty good. Now, don't forget, one of the most important pieces on here is you've got this little scarab inside there. This scarab outside here, there's a skull we'll have to paint later. That's right there at the base, as far as the little details go. And then, of course, there's the work the work I added here with. Come on, you can do it! Wow, it's got like some sort of bias against warrior pieces, Necron warrior pieces. Anyways, so there's a hand for the Necron warrior as well as the head, and then one final scarab again down there at the bottom, and another skull in here, but I think that's actually part of the architecture, so that's going to be gray or whatever. So I think that's all of it. And then the only other piece that got any is this little cable that's coming out of the back of the hand. So with that done, I will put some Agrax Earthshade on it, but first I gotta go finish it. All right, so the lead belcher is complete. The dry brush is done. And now I'm going to be adding a shade of Agrax Brown. Agrax Brown. A shade of Agrax Earthshade. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what, 2 videos in a row where I'm doing a shade step? But, you know, all I have to say to that is, yeah, I guess so. I'm going to be paying attention. I know last time I tried to get all crazy and not watch what I was doing while I was shading, but I do kind of want to hear because I just feel like I think it'd be much quicker if I actually paid attention to what I'm doing versus just, you know, shading. That was a warrior. This one's a little more complicated, so I need to make sure I hit all of the parts that I actually want to hit. And all those parts are the silver parts. Now, not the talons here, although actually maybe the talons. I don't know. Haven't decided yet which Caliban green is going to also get a secondary shade, or not a secondary, but a shade in general. So normally when I do my Caliban greens, I don't do shades for them. But because I am going to be doing, I think I know at least the legs, or the what do you call it, like the legs, the feet portions, or whatever you want to call those. I don't know. These things, these little guys down here. Those are going to get a shade of Agrax Earth Browns. But, so those guys at least are going to get that shade. So haven't decided what on the body, if any, are going to get something like that. Just because I don't know if I want to shade everything, because I want to make sure that it matches the rest of my army, which none of the rest of my army has that. Even, I think the Illuminor one, hey, maybe I'll go back and watch my episode to see if I actually shaded the Illuminor model with any of the Agrax Earthshade that high up. So I don't need to worry about shading any of this over here, simply because that's going to be green. So I'm just going to keep going and hitting all the parts that I know are going to remain silver. A lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but some of this is actually going to get covered up later on once I do start to assemble. And some of it is going to be painted different colors. So realistically, you could shade the whole thing and then go back and, you know, paint it some other color. But you know, why waste the shade? If you know exactly where you want it to be, well, then why waste it? So in my case, I think I know where I want it to be, so I'm going to try and be selective. But, you know, same idea. Don't let it pool. If you see it's getting heavy in one spot, just try and use, like right there, it's really heavy. Right here. Be smart about how you apply the shade if you can. You know, if it's a large section like this, go ahead and start with a fully loaded brush, and then you can just be really sloppy about it and move it around and then come back and tap, tap, tap. But, you know, if you're just going to hit like one little point like this, don't start with a new brush right there, because you're just going to leave a ton of shade like this. You're like, okay, just, oh, yep, now I got to go dry most of that up anyway. So, which is what happened on the other side of those tubes. So, Continue on with the shading, and then of course shade all of the other pieces, the legs, all of the lead belcher portions, and then we will look to dry brush once that is completely dry, which is probably going to take, I don't know, probably half hour. It's pretty warm right now. Maybe it'll go a little bit quicker, but I'd rather have it be fully dry and ready to be dry brushed with that Runefang steel than to start early and then all of a sudden I'm, you know, less than excited. So, all right, finish up this, move on to the next one. All right, with the Agrax Earthshade complete, we will now go and do a highlight, or a dry brush highlight with Runefang steel. Again, Necron Compound, Stormhost Silver, etc., etc. So I'm using a little bit bigger dry brush this time because I wanted longer bristles so that maybe they would drag more versus a short, stiff one, which I believe in my mind would tend to add more of a, like it would just leave more paint on it. So I'm hoping that this drags more, and at least that's in my thought process is the way it's going to go. Either way, I'm just going to be going extremely light with barely any paint because I just want to brighten up the silver as usual and get a nice highlight on the edges. I don't want to, you know, completely fill in all the gaps. It's still keep it looking a little bit dirty, but having a nice little shine to it. So there you can tell the dark side and the light side. Anyways, so continue on doing this with all of the pieces that have been hit with that Agrax Earthshade. And on, let's see, are there any on here? If you do run into an open area, I don't even know if there are any on this model, but you would do like circular motions back and forth on like a more of like a large panel. But it doesn't appear that there really are any on this one. So, hey, there you go. Now you don't even have to worry about that. Continue dry brushing, and once you're complete, we'll move on to Caliban Green. Runefang steel is complete. Next up, we're gonna start basing some of the greens here, and the first green to base is Caliban Green. Now, this is going to be used for all of the hoses, all of the orbs, and most of the legs. So that's pretty much the whole model once again. I just counted 33 separate little pieces of hose to paint, at least how I'm painting it. So, you know, maybe I'll take the time to put up a picture and point them all out, and you know, then you can see the heck I'm talking about. But basically you got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because that tiny little piece of the hose that goes through the orb, and then so that's 8, and then 16 on the other one, and then there's something like, you know, like another 17 or however the math works out on that other piece, which I'll show you in a second. I ended up since the green takes such a long time to paint and then you have to do a second layer, I wanted to be closer to being able to move on to the shading of this, which we'll also talk about sooner than later. So I was painting this on and off whenever I had chances off camera. So don't feel left out. I do that with, I guess, most of my painting, because I think it would be, you know, unless I could figure out how to speed the camera up and do that. I mean, each of these models are probably take like, it doesn't show it, but I mean, maybe like 20, 30 hours on each, like per model. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's dedication regardless. Yum. Anyways, so now we're going to paint the other thing, the orbs real quick. I like to thin this coat down because I don't want it to be thick, go figure. But, you know, just getting it and pushing it into the recesses, and then, you know, just do a couple of these coats and it comes out fine. It actually looks pretty cool when you have airbrush or dry brush that silver over, almost like the, God, I don't know if people remember the gem that they had for like the Tau and whatnot a couple of years ago, where it was like you would paint the Stormhost silver and then you would put like this technical paint down over it, and it was supposed to make this really cool shine. I guess it did if you knew what you were doing. I never got it to work, but I have all 3 of them. Or do I just have 2 of them? May only have the 2 of them, I don't know. That's just because I don't use them. Anyways, so orbs like that, paint them a couple times, a couple coats, just to make sure the silver undertone or the black undertone, whichever base it was currently on it, is gone. And then I'm going to actually paint this entire armor piece, body piece, whatever this is. I'm going to paint the entire thing as well. and come back and I'll show you. Except that's not it, because there's even more green. I'm just stalling to grab another brush. Then I got a much bigger brush, and again, a couple thin layers on my mat. I'll clean that up later. I'll either clean it up or I'll edge highlight it. I don't know, we'll see. Anyways, so this piece here, obviously, this giant leg. I'm gonna do these legs in green. I'm gonna avoid this little connector here, and I will, I'm just gonna keep that silver. I'm not gonna paint it any of the other colors. I just avoid it because you don't wanna have to just repaint it. And then around the top, obviously, and around the sides. And then once I go to shade, that will be nice and darkened down. Now you'll notice I said shade, and I don't normally shade my Caliban green stuff because I do like the color of the Caliban green as it is, and it darkens down pretty good, and then you highlight it and voila. However, I am going to shade, let me show you the rest of this so as you can get an idea of what it looks like once it's actually finished, or at least all the Caliban green is done. So there's that entire section inside and out, and then of course here's the little centerpiece. Now obviously you got the big orbs in the center and the top orb here. There's two little orbs on the either side here, and then like I said, just a ton of hoses. Don't forget his face because you got that orb there and blah blah blah. Anyways, you get all that. Doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is I'm going to shade this, and what I'm going to do this time is rather than doing like just highlighting, I'm going to actually, because I want to get in the cracks of these arms, all of the little cracks and crevices. Normally I would just do like a targeted shade. However, it's a big model, and there's also battle damage on this one, so there's divots that are dented in, and I don't really feel like trying to find every single one of them, make sure I hit them with some shade. So on the legs, I'm going to do, I think, what I did on the Illuminor model. I did a Agrax Urshade and a Nuln Oil, and because I want the legs to be a little bit darker than the rest of the body, I don't know why. I think I saw it somewhere on a cereal box. I don't remember. Probably the artwork, but I don't have the box anymore. And then shade up here with likely just Agrax Earthshade, because again because that's what I'm going to use. Anyways, and then what I'm going to do against all of my intuition is dry brush Caliban green on again. And what I'm hoping to get with that is I'm hoping to basically all these little recesses that are here, almost, it's going to be more like almost an overbrush where I just kind of hold the brush almost parallel to the surface that I'm painting so that all the shade stays in there, all the shade stays in the battle damaged areas, but on the panels I get a nice clean coat. I'm not going to shade any of the hoses. I'm not going to shade the orbs or anything like that. Nothing like that yet because I wouldn't want to shade that. I'd rather glaze that. And I missed. Oh, God. All right, there's another orb back here I just noticed on the very... Yeah, well, come on now. Come on now. Let's be somewhat agreeable. Anyways, there's an orb there on the back, too. So there's an orb on the front and the back. Just make sure when you do these, it's like these little... Oh, yeah, and you were supposed to do Runefang Steel down here. Don't forget those guys. There's so much detail in these. Just make sure you're paying attention to the model, not me. I'm completely background noise at some point. Anyways, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go shade these. I'm going to let them dry, and then I'll come in after I've done the shade to the overbrush, the heavy dry brush, whatever we're going to call it. I'll show you doing that, and then hopefully, since I've never done it before, we will fail or achieve glory at the same time. Quick note, while I was painting and assembling and disassembling, which is something I said I wasn't going to do, with this new model because I didn't want to knock the paints off based on my last episode. However, does anyone else who has seen Wally totally see that this looks like that librarian type robot that was at the head of the captain's quarters for whatever reason? I watched Wally a lot with my kids, and I totally see these arms as like little swivel arms and the head that, anyways. That's not the important thing, although it's slightly interesting in my brain. But I have a confession to make. I was going to take you on this journey with me and show you either failing or succeeding with the dry brushing of Caliban green over the Agrax Earthshade that I just put on here. However, I started to like the look of it looking dark. So I was like, well, if it's already in a good place, then why don't we just, you know, add a little bit of light to it. And so what I'm thinking about doing is taking this piece that's over here, and I'm going to use this as a test piece to basically dry brush on some of the Waywatcher green. So I like what it looks like. I don't know. I didn't think I was going to like it. I thought what was going to happen was I was going to hit too much of the open panels with that moot green, but you know, that didn't happen. It stayed mainly where I wanted it to. It gave a little bit of color overall to the piece. So I'm okay with it. You know, so that's what I'm going to end up doing. I'm going to go in back and doing a dry brush, which I think everybody here knows how to do, but if you don't, I'll show you real quick. The process is to, again, the way I've described it is get some paint on your brush and then waste most of it by drying it off onto a, you know, a paper towel of your choosing. And then the next step is to paint like you're afraid of your model. You know, you hold the brush way out at the end of the tip and you just kind of, you flick back and forth so you hear that noise that's just like an incoming helicopter from really, really far away maybe. I don't know. I've never actually, you know, helicopters typically sneak up on me, but anyways, the point is, this is what I did. I ended up dry brushing, focusing on the parts that are like the harder lines here on the, I'm going to call this the canopy, or yeah, I'm going to call it the canopy because I don't feel like coming up with a better name. As well as the edges. The edges you can go kind of rough on. You don't want to go back and get more paint until you feel like you've painted the same area for 30 seconds or so without actually getting new paint. So, and then even then, again, don't get a whole lot because it is so much easier to add extra, like with this first load of the brush, I go really, really gentle. I don't want to dive right into going across, because if I do a giant green smear across the front, well, then I'm going to want to Caliban green, Agaric Surshade, you know, and I lose however much progress time, dry time, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep going back and forth with the dry brush, go figure, mostly dry. And then this is where I was talking about circular patterns. Like you do this and you kind of catch all the edges. So like I'm trying to catch most of the detail of that battle damage right there. That whatever this guy took, or maybe it's time-worn damage, whatever. But for stuff that's like hard edge, you just rub it against it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that to the side because I do want to, this is the moot green step after all, or whatever. Using some thinned down Waywatcher green. I think that's, nope, Warpstone Glow. Waywatcher's the glaze. I'm going to go and do all of these tubes, and I'm going to probably do a couple coats on them. This will help make these stand out a lot more, especially once some of them get moot green or even maybe a little bit of yellow added to them. So these ones, I want these to stand out because a lot of the body, the legs cover all of these up. I'm going to be doing the same stuff on the legs, dry brushing and just layer painting with Warpstone Glow onto the hoses and dry brushing, obviously, the main body and everything like that. Of course, don't forget, I'm not going to do the eye yet. Because I'm going to dry brush over the front of the face. But, you know, hit that with the Waywatcher green. And then, probably need to water this down more, so I don't have it set up properly, so I might butcher this step. But hey, I got nothing. Anyways, come in here with a, you can use some Lamia Medium. You can use just water. You could just say, to heck with it all, and just go to the very ends here and then use a shade to darken it up later. But you're going to want to cover all of the orbs, and this orb in the center here is what I like to think is his overall like power source or flashlight. I don't know, why would you have a power source exposed this badly, but who knows? It's a cool design, doesn't matter. He's got that living metal +1 to health every command phase or something. I don't know. I was reading his rules a little bit earlier. I expected these guys to be a little bit better because like they were probably one of the more exciting things on the Necron side to look at. But you know, overall the rules aren't terrible with them, but I don't know. You tell me. Reanimation protocol, you get a +1 to that, so it makes it easier for units to come back on if this guy's within range. I don't know if that stacks with like a Cryptek. I think the Crypteks also get a +1, but I don't know if they stack. If they do, then your Necrons get really annoying, I guess. So at some point in the future, I might try to actually learn how to play the game, and if I do, I'm going to sucker a couple of buddy mine who also don't know how to play the game into playing with me, so that we can just completely waste everyone's time with a battle report. But we'll see. I have to paint all of these models first, so you know that'll be like 6 months, 7 months into 2023. So based on how fast I paint. All right, I'm gonna finish orbs, hoses, and then that's layers, and then dry brush the rest of the green. And again, kind of like a light dry brush, focusing mainly on the edges, because you just want to get the battle damage done as well as the edges. So, all right, I'm gonna do that and show you what I got. All right, a couple more updates actually, really quick. I don't know. I think I put a note in this earlier in the video. However, I did go back and darken these back up because the well, I haven't on this one yet. I'll show you in a second. Basically, I'm going to go back over. I haven't done it yet, but this silver is just a bit too bright. You could see that these joints I've already darkened up with Nuln Oil. However, on the rest of the silver, which got brightened up by Runefang Steel, was a bit too bright. So I am going to go back and add a little bit of just really light Agric Earth shade to turn it slightly darker. I'm not looking to redo all of the or to undo all of the work that was there. So I don't know if I said it. Pretty sure I didn't, or I missed it, because I did just edit the first half of this whole video. I didn't want to get stuck doing moot green highlights on the entire thing. I like how the Caliban green looks. I know I'm going to be adding moot green onto the pipes, but overall I didn't want to end up, you know, putting it everywhere. However, then I started to, and I got a little carried away, and I ended up actually highlighting the entire thing with mood green. So now it looks like, you know, this. So I have no problems with it. It's just a lot of work. So what I've done is basically added a very thin line of mood green, and you could tell this mood green is brighter than this one because there's multiple coats here and only one here. So since it's like a translucent paint, I guess the might as well knock that paint off since I'm not going to use it for the next couple minutes. There we go. By the way, I do that, and it looks weird, but I've washed most, if not all, of the paint off, and then I'm trying to just make the tip fine again. You could also, you know, give it one of these if you wanted to, but I don't know. It's a bad habit I got into, and I can't get out of it. So as long as you got some clean paint, it's nasty when you got really dirty paint. So you could even use 2 paint pots. It's not the point. Moot green. So I'm going to put moot green on all the legs, on all the hoses, and all of the orbs. And then the last step I did to clean this guy up was I went through and in all the little battle damaged areas, I ended up putting a little bit of just thinned down Abaddon black. So on to the moot green. So edge highlight, simple step with, you know, just make sure I can actually see because I've been not paying attention. Edge highlight, just go down, make a nice thin line, use a very thin brush, only use really thin amount of water, don't use it really, or little amount of paint, thinned down pretty well. You can trace these lines that are in the center of the legs. This step, I would say, be most vigilant or diligent or something ending in ent with, because since we did a full overall wash of the leg now, trying to go back and correct any brush errors here is going to be more difficult than if it was just a flat Caliban green with no shades. So just look to be a little more careful, you know, and if you're actually wanting your model to look good, well, then you should be careful the whole time. I don't know. I like to paint, and, you know, if I make a mistake, I try to fix it to make it look better. But anyways, you can see how that's going on there. real thin lines. And they're not going to show up, like I said, similar to the hoses, because you are using such a thinned down version and a little amount of paint. Now, for the hoses, I'm going to use a slightly bigger brush to get a little extra of the moot green. Still going to be watered down, and you could use glaze at this point as if you're doing one of the power swords, or you know, something along those lines, energy swords, leisure swords. Anyways, the idea here is you can also paint all the way up as far as you want onto here, and paint right up to the edges if you felt like it. Because what you can then do, this is again watered down. It's not super thick amount, but you know, you could tell I'm not making a very good transition here, but that's fine, because what I will do is I will add the paint, finish up wherever I feel like, and while the paint is wet, you can do it when it's dry, but you can do it when it's wet too. Go back, clean your brush off, grab a little bit of watered down Warpstone Glow, as opposed to everything else I was calling it in the last step, and now go from the top down, bottom up, top down, bottom up, top down, bottom up, just like that. And you blend the colors together as if you were using a palette, but you're just using the actual the piece. Now do this until you're happy with where the where the color blend starts, and just, you know, how it sits and how bright it is. Like down here, it's not, the moot green is not too bright. I want it to dry off a little bit more before I go back to it. But because I'm also impatient, I'm going to go back now, and again, like I said, you take some of that moot green, or the Warpstone Glow you just put on, and then you mix it with the moot green. The idea is to create a gradient back and forth, as if it was like one of those, again, one of those weapons, because you don't want it to just be hard edges, you know, unless it's what you're going for. I don't know. You decide what you're going for, and then you paint it. I'm going to paint it so that there's an actual, you know, blended gradient. Now, something you might notice on these the ones that are completed, is the line, the hoses look very defined. So I went back with a little bit of, I think it's Bale Tan green, and I just took a very thin amount, straight from the pot, not thinned down that is, but a very little amount, and just traced it in to where the two hoses meet. And that doesn't really change a whole lot of the colors for the two hoses, but it just adds a nice little defining line. You can do that as well in the corners of the orbs if you feel like it. I'm not going to. So there you go. That's how the hoses are done. Maybe this will be dry enough to add a little more moot green in here. Again, either with watered down via water, watered down, or mix with a lime medium. And I also would say you don't want to do just the one side. You're going to want to do the top here, as well as, where is a good angle? Nowhere. Anyways, the bottoms of both, and then of course the insides, which here as well. And you want to try to go up to approximately where you were on the opposite side to make it look just symmetrical. So take your time, go back and forth. You can always, like I said, because you're going back and forth with the Warpstone Glow and the moot green, back and forth, just do it until, you know, it kind of gauge it by the eye. I'm going to tell you right now, this step is already really long. I did two 7-minute steps, and I haven't even gotten into the eyes yet, or any of the, I did the edge highlighting a little bit. So now let's just go to the orbs. And again, orbs are done just like we just did the hose. You are going to take your paint and thin it down to where it doesn't even look like it's painting properly, but you're going to do about, I don't know, I would say at least 3, if not like 4 or 5 coats, because I would rather do it really, really thin and have it lay nice and smooth, because it's supposed to be an orb, not some sort of rocky feature. Anyways, rocky, oh gosh, my brain went a lot of places, and I had to stop it because we're already at, like, what is this, 8.5 minutes. So anyways, that's how you do it. Boom, there you go. Just make sure you don't forget the little orb back there as well. And then you want to do, again, insides of the hoses everywhere. And there you go. If you have a steady hand, I would say go ahead and look to trace the battle damage with an edge highlight. Like, let's see if we can do one right here. Like, there's a big gouge here. So for this edge, you would come in here, and you would you would have enough paint on your brush to make the edge highlight. So there you go, nice clean edge highlight, because I just have a little bit. I'm doing just constant brush strokes with less paint rather than a single brush stroke with too much paint. Now, really thin, really fine point. Here we go. We're going to go and do this. And this is kind of like when you're doing the eyes. You almost like tap it like you don't want to touch the model. You'd rather have the paint dry on the brush and then you have to clean the brush out and you're annoyed with that than to just goop it on really heavily. Now, I don't even know if that was visible. It is in person. Oh, that is, the problem that I have overall, I think my biggest, besides the constant rambling around sentences and tangents and everything that I have an issue with, is the fact that I don't know if this is going to look okay on video to the same way I can see it in person. So, like I said, if you've got the steady hand to do it, go ahead and do those. If not, feel free to just avoid them and just, move on to the other edge highlights. I don't have the steadiest hand in the world. It just takes a lot of practice. But if you practice it a lot, you get better. Obviously, you can also see that this is painted Macragge blue. This is some sort of stone. I'm just filling in the base details. I'm not going to really highlight those, since the model, you can base it however you want. You can have it have fought whatever you would like. I've got a white hand over here because I'm like, well, he's fighting my fulminators, and I would have probably painted this giant power fist or whatever this, not power fist, but the dreadnought fist in white. So it's going to get a lot of shading, might get some stippling. I don't know. Haven't decided how far I want to go with that, but mainly, obviously, the focus is the big guy. So let me stop this at 11 minutes. I apologize. All right, and on to the final of the longer steps. I think there's actually only 2 more steps officially for painting the model. There is basing to be done, but overall, I think we're on to the last 2 steps, which is a little bit of Dorn yellow. I also have used Flash Gits, but I watched a video recently, which I'll look for the link, but it was, I'm not gonna remember the name, but I'll pop it up somewhere, like whoop, at the bottom or whatever. And then I'll link it in the video, because he did a really good job of explaining like how to do the heavy metal style of paint, or at least attempted to. And it's kind of changed how I do all of my stuff. So I'm redoing my Cryptek. This model is gonna be mostly done in that manner. Anyways, so he uses Dorn yellow versus Flash Gits yellow. It's a softer yellow. It's less hot rodish. So anyways, you'll see. Looks good though. I painted the rest of the model already. So the way that we're going to do this is we're only going to go, so with the moot green, we went over and did like the whole circle of the hose. So like on the bottoms and the tops and everywhere. With the Dorn yellow, I'm just going to try to get a thin line on the bottom and kind of centered between where the moot green starts and where it stops. So something along those lines. And again, we're using a thin down. I'm using water. You could use medium, but overall we're using a thin version of it, because we don't want it to be like overpowering the moot green. I'm gonna make this one short, trust me, but it's short by like what, 3 or 4 minutes. Anyways, 2 minutes into it already. I was cleaning my eyes, not being disappointed in myself. Anyways, now I'm disappointed in myself. So if you do put too much yellow on, again, similar to when you were putting the moot green on, go ahead and clean up with a thin down like version of the next step up. So like in this case, or in the last case, you were cleaning up with Warpstone Glow. In this case, you are now cleaning up with moot green. So, take a little bit of moot green and just go to the edges and make sure that you cut that hard edge out and try to blend it in with a little of the Dorn yellow, right? Dorn, I think it's a D. I'll have to look it up, because anyways, so there you go. So you get that nice little, just a little bit of a highlight there. And then the only other parts, so obviously we're going to be doing, all of the hoses that are here. And then the lovely little orb. So the orb originally, on my original orbs, not in this case, but on, I had only done like a dot right there in the center. And that's great for like an eye, I guess. I don't know. But on these, because I'm changing up how I'm doing this, I'm going to be doing basically the whole thing. I'm going to go a little bit back into here. I can tell right now that I have too much paint on my brush. So I'm going to thin that out, and then now with the thinner version, I'm going to try and grab, there we go, grab and pull some of that paint away. I still want some of the moot green showing. I obviously want some of the warpstone glow showing, so I want it to be darker, closer to the edges. And then, again, similar to when we were doing the moot green, more, you know, more thin coats is fine. I actually, someday, I think I'm going to try and paint almost like a orb that has, or an orb that has like turbulence in it. So, you know, doing a very thin coat and doing, you know, just like kind of slopping it on like this and then letting it dry. So you have some darker patches of the under part showing and then some lighter patches of the color you just put on. But I'd have to play around with that before I pretended that it was intentional. So anyways, so we're going to go here, do a bunch of coats of the yellow, make sure it's nice and solid, and obviously go and finish up the rest of the cables. I did, you know, a little bit more basing here and a little bit more basing on the other one, but let me show you what the piece looks like now. And it looks, I mean, pretty good. I think we're very close to done. We have a nice glow on the hoses. We have a nice glow from the orbs in the center, orb in the front, and I mean, overall, I am liking how it's looking. Now, the only thing that I'm frustrated with right now is the amount of green. I feel like either this centerpiece, so like just let me turn it around because it's easier to see what I'm talking about when I say center. The center in that, like, just this here, without obviously the piece over the top and without this piece that's going around the side. I think I could have made that a different color in like, you know, something like a silver or even a black or something different. Unfortunately, I don't want to go back and change anything right now, but I do feel like it's just a lot of green. So I'm hoping that these yellows come through and really shine for me. Like I said, the model's basically going to look like this on the other side. So we got a lot of colors and whatnot going on as far as, you know, here down. It just seems like a lot of green up top, but that's okay. A little bit of corn red and some shade on it. Just painted the skulls in Xandri dust. Did a little bit of shading over here. The base is going to, like I said, it's going to be pretty plain. I don't think I'm going to highlight anything. I don't know, I'll probably dirty it up a little bit more. I'll paint the skulls, but overall, it's just going to get its normal astro granite. But the last step is, and do I have any on my thing? Nah, I'm going to have to go get some. But basically just painting the these little tiny little details right here. There's some sort of like a hieroglyph writing or something along those lines. So I'm going to paint that with some Retributor armor, and I probably will just leave it just really light across the top. I don't know, and I don't think I'm going to apply any sort of glazes to the yellow because I want it to be that bright yellow color. Even if I use Lamenters, it's going to turn it a darker shade of yellow. So I think I'm just going to leave it like that because I want that to be bright, seeing as how, again, most of the rest of my model is just Caliban green. So if I had to do it all over again, I might consider painting that. And right now I don't think I'm going to do it in this video, but maybe someday I'll fix it or I'll change it and I'll update the picture on the video and add a little note. But thinking about changing this to something else, but as of right now, I don't know what. Anyways, there was my shortened version, and it wasn't shorter at all. So we're almost done though. The next step, if I go more than 2 minutes, I make no promises. So the last step is to use a little bit of Retributor armor on the symbols here that are just on the side. These are raised enough that you can take a very light amount of paint. I wouldn't say thin down because then it's going to go into the cracks. If it does go into the cracks, you can always just use some shade, like a Reikland Flesh shade or Agrax or shade, really any shade you want to fill those up. But if you use, you know, just a decent amount of paint, thin down, and then use the very edge of your brush and just lightly go over the tops here to blurrily make it stand out. So with this step completed, which I'm just about done, I will then work on just finishing up the base, adding the Necron Warrior, Fallen Soldier there underneath, and then just finishing up all the little details there, and then I will come back and show you the final result in picture and video form, and we'll close out. Oh my gosh, sorry about that. Hey, it looks good when it's in focus though. You know, that whole time where I was painting it, trust me. Where can I paint it? It would have just looked like this. So there you go, just pretend I did that the whole time. All right. And so there you go. We have the Necron Canoptek Reanimator in all of its Sautekh Dynasty glory. Like I said at the beginning, this model was mostly easy to paint, while it is a lot of surface and a lot of repetitiveness as far as like the highlights. It has the glowing effects on it. Overall, I mean, the color palette is very small, not a whole lot of colors to do. The assembly of it is way simple. You know, it's because it's one of the push-to-fit models, but there are other push-to-fit models which get really complicated, like the Scorpic Destroyers, which might be tackling next. We'll see. Overall, though, a lot of fun to paint this one. If you did enjoy it, please remember to like, subscribe, comment, ring the bell. Let me know what I should paint next. Let me know what I should have done differently. You know, all the fun stuff that we do on YouTube. I'm hoping to continue, like I said, painting from the Indomitus box, and then I've got Age of Sigmar stuff. I've got other Xenos type orc, Tyranid, blah, blah, blah. I got all kinds of fun stuff to paint, so hopefully you'll join me with that with a subscription, and if not, well, that's fine too. Either way, I'll see everybody in the next one. Bye. And remember, when thinning, use Lamium medium or water just to make sure that the gradient goes on nice and smoothly.